Good evening. My name is Rebecca Alexander, and for my specialist year of practicum, I have work site placement at the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Department of Community-Based Services, the Division of Protection and Permanency. I have worked for the cabinet for approximately 10 years, and the last 5 of those years I worked as an adoption specialist. However, doing worksite placement, I have worked outside of my job to explore other areas that I'm not as familiar with within the cabinet. For those of you who are not familiar with DCBS, we are what most people call Child Protective Services, and we serve the vulnerable children of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. My work as an adoption specialist is I engage with foster families who have children in their home that are post termination of parental rights, and they are available for adoption because they are wards of the state. When they come to me, I work with them to navigate the legal process of adoption, but I also prepare them for what it's like to parent an adopted child. Because once adoption occurs, that is another grief and loss for them. And so it is not always a happily ever after situation. And so there are other things that come into play, trauma when they meet hormones and puberty. There's a lot of things that we talk about to help them start to think ahead of what they will be preparing themselves for, because children are not etch-a-sketches, and so adoption does not shake them all up and make all their trauma go away. So I worked specifically with families on what that will look like in the future. I do absolutely love my job. But I have taken the opportunity of working in practicum and having this worksite placement, like I said, to learn aspects of my job that aren't as familiar to me. And so the way I'm engaging in those core competencies for my specialist year, my first competency to demonstrate ethical and professional behavior. I will conduct myself in a professional manner when engaging with the community and the court system by communicating respectfully and presenting myself appropriately in dress and language. I am in court several times a week. I work in court in 8 different counties, and so that I really have an opportunity to engage with our judges and our attorneys, and it is imperative that in those situations that they trust the social workers and the opinion of the cabinet. And so how I carry myself and conduct business is very important, and so that is something that I will continue to strive to do in my practicum. My second competency, advancing human rights and social, racial, and economic and environmental justice. I'm going to consider the disadvantages experienced by our foster children so I can advocate for their best interest within school, treatment teams, medical providers, the court system, and then engage on social media and advocate for them with society as a whole. Competency three, engaging in anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion in practice. For this year, I am going to work with families who are adopting a child from a different race. And I'm going to be very intentional about working with them with their cultural humility, so we can work towards cultural competence and encouraging them to engage in the culture of the child that they are adopting so that can be appropriately acknowledged but also celebrated. Competency four, I'm going to engage in practice informed research and research informed practice. This year, I am going to research that cultural competency amongst foster parents and the effect that having cultural competency has on placement stability and the rates of adoption dissolution. So I'm going to look at that from a research perspective, and then I'm going to develop a tip sheet to distribute to our foster foster parents. Competency 5, I'm going to engage in that policy practice. We have some major legislation coming through in the new legislation session in the spring that's directly going to affect child welfare in a pretty substantial way as far as increasing the kind of reports we take, but also tightening up timeframes. And so I'm going to be following that to see how it is moving through. It has come through the legislature. It's going to move on to the Senate and study how that's going to directly affect our practice, social work practice here locally in the cabinet. Competency 6, engaging with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. I'm going to be using the information that I've learned through that research and that policy to better equip families for fostering and adoptive success, including the facilitation of these conversations between children and their caregivers. When it comes to assessing individuals, families, groups, organizations, communities, I am going to be working with our recruitment certification unit. A big thing that's coming around in the cabinet is subsidized permanent custody, where family members can take permanent custody of a child who is in foster care and continue to receive subsidy to help financially support them. That's a whole new process for us. And so I'm going to be working with the individuals who do that to learn that process and how they assess those relatives to ensure that they're appropriate. Competency 8 intervenes with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. I am going to learn about and engage in the new practices that the cabinet is introducing to intervene in families. First and foremost, our new policies around an alternative response, which is shifting our focus of our agency from being reactive to being proactive with families. So when we have things that are not as serious reports, how we deal with them will be dealt with differently. This is a new process that's rolling out, and so I'm going to dedicate myself to learning about that because that is an investigative process that I am not on the investigative side, so that will be new to me. And then also, on June 27th of this year, there was a major statute change to KRS 625090, which is our statute surrounding termination parental rights. And it has changed the way that we are supposed to be working with parents with potential disabilities, and that definition of disability is very large. So I will be learning more about the changes we're going to have to make surrounding that by being in conversation with our legal counsel, but also with the new ways that our ongoing staff is developing to work with those individuals. And then finally, competency number 9, to evaluate these practices. I will be attending and engaging in the regional meetings where the performance of the region is evaluated, such as the management team with the supervisors, case consult day, and our pre-permanency meetings where we really break down what we're doing with families to ensure that we are doing our best. My learning goals and what I hope to learn in my placement is just everything that's not my job. I am a specialist, and so I specialize in adoption. And even though I've only been doing that for about 5 years, and for my first 5 years of the cabinet, I did something totally different. I've already noticed how I've lost some of those skills just because I don't practice them every day. And so it really is my goal to tap into those areas that I'm not as familiar with that our agency does, because I never know when I'm going to have to engage those skills, and that's going to make me best for my families. How do I hope to grow throughout this experience? Like I said, I just hope to be a better worker. I hope to be a better social worker for my families, for me to be a better social worker for my agency, but also to make me as versatile as possible. So when I'm needed, I have the skill sets to plug in those areas. One strength that I think I bring to the agency is I've been told over and over that I'm a very strong communicator, as well as a very good de-escalator. And so I can step into these situations, whether it be professional, like a court setting, or with community partner, or one-on-one with a young person who might be escalated, or a family that might be escalated. And I use communication to get everybody on the same page. And so that is something that I've always been told is a strength that I feel like is a strength that I think I bring to this. Areas for improvement. Obviously, that is self-care. I am a full-time student and a full-time social worker, just like so many of you are who are in this program. And so finding that time to find that balance so I do not burn out, so I do not have compassion fatigue, so that I can continue to give the best of myself. And then of course, time management and leaving appropriate space for everything, because the nature of my job, and the families that I care for me, they will always take precedence. But realizing that for this season, this is also important. Gaining my education so that I can be better for them is also important, and that will be my biggest challenge, is having enough hours in the day to give my best to everything that I'm currently committed to. But I am looking forward to another year and the new things that I'm going to learn from my field instructor. I appreciate y'all giving me your attention for a little while, and I look forward to hearing the rest of your stories. Thank you.